you are gonna see some cool ass shit.
Yeah, you don't want 2 Flavor Flays.
Heart transplants, brain surgeries. I've seen it all.
Dude, that's fucking dope.
Walk up and just get it, whatever it is.
Yeah, brother.
I'm trying not to laugh, bro, but Josh is fucking killing me.
Well, guess what Navy SEALs do, motherfucker? They communicate and they're on the same fucking page.
Whoa. Some good ones.
Oh fuck. We're live. Hold on.
Welcome everybody to the
There
Happy
we go.
Hoodlums podcast. We got technical errors, but we're rolling.
It was small. I just didn't have our cameras on screen.
Oh,
So
all
it's
right.
okay
Well,
though.
you heard me before you seen me. Like I had some good speakers in my car. So
Exactly.
welcome to the podcast. It's your host, Kemper Woodruff, the Happy Hoodlum himself, and the very powerful, strong man, Mr. Zachary Sampson. All
Except
right.
I don't feel very
So-
strong. I haven't been able to work out that much. But
That's okay. I don't feel very happy, but I'm here.
hey,
Um,
hey, we're working through it.
Yeah. And you know, I have a quote from this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Okay.
It's a fantastic book, and that's going to kind of preface what I go into. And he's talking about the power of decisions. And it says, the value of decisions depends upon the courage required to make them. And that shit is so powerful to me, and it really hit home because, you know, in life, we wrestle with this concept and of losses, you
Mhm.
know, and I've really come to believe that there are no losses in life. There's only changes. And from taking that mind state, um, you kind of can fall back on your ability to love your way through pain. Like be in pain and choose to love anyways. And most of the time, the pain comes from expectations and what you think should be happening, and you feel like you're not seeing it happen, right? And so you have this contrasting reality of like what you feel is true to you in your inner spirit world, you know, and in your mind and in your heart, and then what you're seeing in this outer world not seeming to reflect that, fulfilling itself in your life. And it can be painful because we put ourselves in this victimized state when we believe that we've lost something. Um, and what is hard to accept is that you might not have lost something, it might have just changed for you. Because everything is like, if you look at the universe, it's always in a constant state of change.
Mhm.
Um, and like that's like the one consistent thing within the universe is like evolution and expansion. Um, and I think sometimes as men, especially, and I'm sure this is the same for women too, but I can say as a man being, you know, your responsibility to protect and provide, um, we can begin to play a role um, that's required for the betterment of another person until eventually one day they don't need you anymore, right? And my mom always used to tell me like men oftentimes like define themselves by what we do instead of who we are. Like when you're seeing men like interact in a social setting, oftentimes the first question they ask is, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. um and I kind of started to observe that, and um but like once someone doesn't need you anymore and you've defined yourself by living based on this like out of date script, you know, like they're in a different section in a different movie altogether, and they've left you behind. You know, you no longer fit in this scene of life, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
And that shit can fucking hurt, because it cost you who you were before to become this, you know? And that's when you need that courage to make the decision and to choose to love that person anyways and let them go be better because that means that you really did your job good, right? And that's like a crazy painful thing, um, in a sense, if you view it as a loss instead of just a change, and accepting that change. Um, and from that point, you need to figure out how to live your life as a better person from what you learned through becoming the person that other person needed you to be. Does that make sense? And like in the end, you realize that like you became that person because you needed to become that person for yourself. And the very thing that like you needed was what you became by like giving it away. And you gave it away until all of a sudden the tables turned and now you have to learn how to provide that for yourself. And it's just this crazy thing of like having a wholeness. Um and it made me realize, in what I'm going through in my life that like that shit comes through pain, and like pain is actually supporting you on this journey, and like your ability to sustain pain while moving in the direction you need to get to where you want to be, is what actually keeps you on the course of success. And you can't get there without it. Like that pain is actually holding you up and you feel like it's tearing you down. And once you can just accept all of what's going on, like, and choose to love it and not see it as a loss in your life, but see it as just changes, it's this crazy maturity and leveling up that happens like through you. Um, but you gotta constantly go back to your inner world, in this little slice of the universe inside of yourself where everything can look fucked up, but you just have this calmness where you're just observing it and you go, no, it's all right. Like these are all just changes, and I know they're getting me there. They're bringing me to that place, and I know I'm going there because I can feel it in here.
Mhm.
And just constantly keep looking back in here and finding that intuition and that inspiration inside of yourself, and that love, that endless stream of love that comes from like God and the universe, whatever you want to say, but it's through your spirit, you know, and it manifests and in that feeling, and it keeps you on track. And pain almost keeps you going back to that place until that place is the realest. You recognize how real it is, and that this whole world and all the shit going on out there is secondary. There's no accolade, there's no attaboy, there's no fucking material trophy that you can get that's ever gonna give you that level of peace, and like fulfillment in here that you really need. And so once you get that, you become secure. And you're like, man, fuck it all. I love it all for what it is, and it doesn't have to be something different for me, you know? And you just move with it and keep moving through it and just allow it all to like engulf you. It's like a tsunami of acceptance, bro. And
I
shout out
think
to Christy for telling me, like when you're in a rip curl, when a wave takes you under, you just got to kind of give into it and it'll spit you out and pop up. But if you try to fight it, you'll stay under longer. And that's when you kind of get lost in it. And that's just like such a metaphor for what's going on in my life right now.
Yeah. I think I think when we talk about like acceptance, a lot of people can like, and this is one thing that I get afraid of when people talk about acceptance and like all you need to do is just accept it and let it be. Is like sometimes people can do that. Um in a lot of situations, if you practice enough, you can get really good at that, accepting what a situation is. And maybe not in the short term, but maybe in like a couple weeks, you'll be able, it works itself out in your system and you're able to re regulate yourself
Mm-hmm.
and accept the facts of what's going on for what it is rather than creating a new reality. Um, but what I get worried about when people talk about that type of stuff is using that as a way of like almost, you know, how like when when you ask a dad how they're doing and they say, I'm fine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
and they don't really mean it. And it's the same way as that I'm afraid that some people say, I've accepted it in a way where they say that to kind of get away from having to address these feelings. And they're like, I've accepted it, but they don't mean it and it's still painful. And they
I'm
haven't
glad that
worked
you're,
it out and shit, you know?
yeah, I'm glad that you're actually touching on this because I guess you're kind of distinguishing. What I'm talking about is accepting that something is unacceptable to you, but it
Okay.
has to be okay. Like,
I think maybe
because,
where I'm getting lost in your description, just real quick, is like
yeah.
I'm trying to create an example in my head, and you don't have to give your exact
Hmm.
example of what you're going through, but maybe just if you can give me an example so that I can kind of like
Well,
connect these things to each other.
some decisions aren't your own,
Correct.
right? So, in
Yeah.
terms of like relationships, right? You can feel like you lost a person because a relationship didn't turn out the way that you wanted to because you
Hmm.
saw it going this way and you thought better was a life together, and maybe what was better is for that person to learn how to live without you and for you to learn how to live without them at a certain point,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
And like that shit is fucking hard because I'm someone who like I really invest my all, you know.
Same.
And so learning to accept that like you might have crossed paths with this person at a time when they needed you, and what you gave was like good enough for a while, and then over the course of that, especially if it's like somewhat destructive, you know, you can also falter in yourself being more reactive than proactive because like I said, not all the decisions are yours and it's not all on that other person, you know. But sometimes like as a man, where you want to have control, you're not allowed to because you would be fucking up someone else's free will,
Yeah.
you know? And life just doesn't work that way. And it's vice versa, you know? There's tons of women that are like, dude, I wish he would just act this way, but he doesn't fucking get it, you know?
Hmm.
And interesting side note on that. It seems that um, men and women that have been hurt almost like reflect the opposites, you know, where like you might see a woman be far more independent and distant, which would typically be a trait of like how we look at like men not wanting to settle down or something, right?
Yeah.
Like a woman who's hurt will get more that way, you know, where like a man who's hurt will become oftentimes like more clingy and like over affectionate, right? And like that's something in my own life that like I've wrestled with both dynamics because like my inherent nature is the first one, and then in doing that it didn't really work out, you know. And I was like constantly in this like crazy roller coaster of like a short relationship of me trying to invest my all, and it's like hyper passionate, hyper sexual, and it's like too much, you know,
Yeah.
and oftentimes like too much too soon because I don't have that like boundary. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like I just want to give all of me, and it's like, here it is. Here's everything, and this is absolutely what I need, and see if someone's up to speed for that. And then they are on like a first date where it's like a hookup or something. And then all of a sudden they want to have a relationship that's like more substantial. And it's like, whoa, I don't really know the in between game. I don't know how to go from giving it all to pulling it back and baby stepping in because that feels off to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just that's been like this reoccurring cycle in my life that's like destructive on both sides.
Mhm.
And it's something that I've tried to learn how to address and like work through, and I don't know that I understand it so much. And I it also makes me wonder, like, maybe I'm neither of us are so much wrong, and there's learning on both sides from just experiencing things. But on the other end of it, it's like maybe I'm not right for a certain kind of person.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
do. I do.
maybe like the type of person that I need is like fucking a little bit crazy, but 100% loving. You know what I mean?
There's there's a lot that I relate to like what you just said, but the first thing I want to say before I forget it is I read this book earlier this year.
Hmm.
Um After my breakup in the beginning of the year.
Hmm.
Um I read it and it changed my entire perspective on how I approach relationships now.
Yeah.
Um and I think you should read it. It's in audiobook form.
Hmm.
It's called sorry. It's called Attached.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all about the attachment styles of adult relationships.
Mm.
And essentially, there's three. There's a little bit of nuance because you might lean more to one side, but still be one. But anyways, uh, so there's secure, which is what everyone wants to be. Um, it's actually surprisingly the majority as well. And then there's anxious and avoidant. Um, Anxious and avoidance tend to get trapped in relationships with each other because of how they work for whatever reason.
Yeah,
And
they're kind of
so
opposites.
they're the
And
exact opposites, and it's toxic for each other unless they're able to work through it.
yeah.
Um, and because anxious people crave attachment and closeness and affection, whereas because they lacked it in their childhood life, right? Whereas anxious people, or not anxious, avoidant people pull away because they had too much of people controlling them as they grew up. So when you have an anxious person who wants to talk to you all the time, be around you all the time, do this and do that all the time, or know where you're at all the time, depending on who you're with. Um, then you have this avoidant person who's like, well, this is way too much for me and it's triggering me. And they go. But then when this person pulls away from the relationship a little bit, maybe distance them, doesn't talk to them for a day or two or whatever, right? This person gets triggered and pushes harder for closeness and affection, which pushes this person further away. And then it's this trap of like, and then maybe sometimes the avoidant will give the attention that the anxious person is looking for, which then feeds their dopamine and puts them on
Hmm.
this fucking
Yeah.
hormone
And
of this roller coaster of hormones, and it
yeah.
becomes a trap. And so that's usually what a lot of avoidant attachment people get stuck in. But this book helps talk each group besides secure people. It also talks about secure people, but it talks about how anxious and avoidance can work through those issues and communicate and process everything to have a healthy relationship. Um,
Well, I think also like at a certain point you're just like I'm a little bit fucking crazy from all the shit that like I've been through in my life, but the
yeah.
crazy is almost like what makes me find peace and sanity within myself. And so there's a part of me like where on an understanding level, I'm like super out of this park real, right?
Hmm.
But on the other side of it, like my standards and what I want and like how strong my vision is for what I want because of what I didn't get, you know, is like fucking it puts me on this other crazy side of the spectrum because I have this like unfucking compromising like desire, I guess, to achieve this reality and understand what it's like, you know? And the two kind of fight each other.
Yeah. And
So I think some of the craziest people can be the most like secure in understanding fucked up shit. You know what I mean? That's like just
yeah.
human. It's not like demonizing this person
Well, there's
because
a
they have
difference
baggage.
between there's a difference between understanding and being secure, right? You can
Well,
understand something, but you may not be secure in your relationship. So there's a little bit
yeah,
of
but
a different situation there.
I'm saying like accepting that someone has baggage, right?
Yeah.
Which is like how a relationship can start. And maybe this is something that goes along more that like anxious line, right? Um because if I'm not on that line, then I'm like way avoidant and it's like finding that middle ground is
Yeah. When I
is tricky.
when I read that book, there's a quiz in it that helps you determine what your attachment style is. And
Mhm.
I scored um really good on secure, but just slightly better on anxious. So like I'm which is it tracks with like my relationship history. Anyways,
Mhm.
um and my behaviors. Anyways, fuck. So I'm mostly anxious with a
Mhm.
lot of secure tendencies.
Mm.
And so like I think I only scored 1 point more on the anxious scoring.
Huh.
And so it's like there are nuances to it. So like you can have a lot of secure features but still be dominant in one or the other. Um
Yeah.
but so it's like there are nuances to it where you can have probably a dominant secure relation or like relationship attachment or and then just have some anxious tendencies or avoidant tendencies or a mix of both depending on the situation, you know, like you're talking about.
I think that's why being like being secure comes with that whole mind state of accepting change and not feeling like you're losing something so rapidly, right?
That's that's what they that that's actually what they talk about in the book. Like a secure person understands that there's also uh other options too.
Yeah.
So like they are able to get over a breakup faster usually because they know that like there's other people out there. And that's the one thing that anxious people get locked into is thinking, "Oh my god, this person is the one. If it doesn't work with this person, I'll never find someone else." That's an
Hmm.
anxious mindset. And avoidance usually are just like, "I'm kind of done with this person," and moves on to the next one. Doesn't really
Yeah.
they don't really put a whole lot of thought into that, right? And so like there's different ways that those people like think. But I forgot how that connected to what you were saying at this point. I don't know where
That's
I
all
was
good.
going. Sorry.
Honestly, no, man, I'm not worried about it. We're just talking. You know, I just find it interesting because, like, I'm just really observing my life and, like, um, recognizing that something um, doesn't it can be extremely painful if you allow it in certain moments, you know,
Mhm.
and just respecting that, like, that's the short-sighted part of you experiencing this. But
Yeah.
if you really dissociate in a sense from this, and by just going, all right, well, this is today, but I'm going to tap into the overview of my life story. When I'm really telling my life story and narrating my life story, and that's really what I consider communing with God for myself. You know, I go inside myself and I speak such real, resonant truth about what I want that it overfills my being with this fulfilling, comfortable, secure, feeling of like, I know this is what's really going to happen in the end,
Mhm.
and it's usually totally counter to what is appearing at first. Each day our tendency is to wake up and narrate what happened yesterday so we contextualize why we're experiencing today. That's what a lot of people do, rather than just waking up, seeing the world, and just going into the world unexpectedly, to a certain extent, or they just rush out of their house. And chances are, if that's their tendency, they're back in another version of a day they've already lived before. And it's a similar narration, anyways. But I digress. The point of what I'm saying is, when I go into this mode where I'm really telling myself basically like the opposite of what's happening, but what I want to happen, the maturity part came, and through what I would call faith or inner knowing and trust, with this feeling and sense that I get back as feedback to the thought that I'm presenting. So it's like, in the end, I'm going to be happy. I know that this is my path to discovering how to live a fulfilling relationship, life, be a father, all these different things, that I want, because it can feel like, yo, I wanted so badly to have this family, with this person, and it's going these different ways. And like, when kids are involved and you don't get to see them as much as you want, like, that's some real shit. And every day you wake up and it fucking, it gets at you, and like, when shit isn't always like readily available, even though it's not like I'm in like prison or something, but when communication's bad,
Mhm.
you know or say someone's in the military or they are locked up, right? And all they have is something like, when I turn on my phone and all I see is my little daughter's face, like, that's that constant reminder. And like, that's as close as I get sometimes, unless I go into that place where I just go, you know what, I'm going to send love anyways. And not just to her, to her mother, you know to any woman that's ever loved me and made me feel loved, to my friends and all these people, like, anyone that needs love. You can really be this like generator and tap into that stream and really just seek to emanate that. And it's so life-giving, um and it doesn't exclude you from the pain of experiencing something, because like, as a little kid, like, I love and I hope like a little kid, and I think that's like the childhood wound in me, I guess, of like abandonment, is always loving like someone isn't gonna love me. So I try to give all of me in every way that I can, and it's just too much for so many people. And I get it, you know, like, at a certain point, like, and I'm done like knocking me for that,
Yeah.
and finding different ways to channel that. And rather than giving it all physically, kind of pulling back and being more reserved physically. And you might not even know that I'm thinking it, but I'm just sending you good energy, you know, and just watching what's going to come back as I stay in this state constantly. and I have to stay there because if I go out here, I'm gonna destroy myself because I can't live in that. That shit is too dark.
Mhm.
That will crush my fucking soul, and it does every time that I fucking tiptoe out of that spot inside of myself. You know, where my dreams are my reality, bro. When I come back into this world, it fucking, dude, that shit is like the real crucifixion, you know? And I'm like, I just feel nailed to these circumstances, you know, of my own habits and creation. And I need to evolve beyond my own habits of what I do on a primal reactionary level and become supernatural with it in how I interact. Because I think, this thought came to me the other day when I was kind of recognizing this shit. And I think if we're mind, body, and soul, right, we're predominantly non physical consciousness. And so, and I was thinking like physicality is the least natural part of me. That's the furthest extension of myself because mostly where I live, where I feel whole within myself, within my experience, is when my mind feels at peace and I'm resting, like in my heart space of my emotions, where my mind and my emotions just melt together on like a spiritual level. And I just feel this level of contentment and my ability to be in the world, you know? And this body is all like it takes third place to that shit. And I think like when you just go through enough raw life, it it makes everything turn all inverse if you're seeking your answers long enough. You know, and you take yourself out of that victim role and just start looking at this as like some kind of divinely orchestrated play, you know? And like even if it's a small part, I just want to play my part.
I have this like um on a regular basis I have that feeling kind of like of just contentment with who I
Mhm.
am. So most days I have that like I feel like I'm understanding that connection you're talking about. Um
Mhm.
but I think I achieved it through a different method, which thankfully, and I've told this to a lot of people. Reading meditations changed my life.
Of
Um,
Marcus Aurelius.
yeah, Meditations
Yeah.
by Marcus Aurelius, because that book helps you accept what's going on in
Mhm.
like the realest sense. And when you read it knowing that he wasn't writing that book for anybody else, that was a journal that he was keeping, telling himself how to be a good emperor and a good man and shit. And this guy was able to forgive his brother who tried to have him assassinated twice, and like be and still like have a good outlook on it. And so I think I've achieved that like peacefulness and calmness that you're talking about
Mhm.
by reading that book and understanding that things are going to happen, and everything that's going to happen is acting within their nature. And you can't fault
Mhm.
someone for being who, acting to their nature the same way you wouldn't fault an apple tree for not sprouting apples, or for sprouting, yeah, for not sprouting apples during the off season. Right. So like you
Yeah.
wouldn't fault an apple tree for not growing shit when it's not supposed to grow shit. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, they were gonna do that. That's who they are. I'm not really gonna stress about it.
Yeah.
And so
And that
I've got that. I feel like I've understood that contentment since reading that. It was fucking nice.
Yeah, it's some powerful shit to understand people are like living mostly like in this state of continually trying to overcome their prior level of awareness, right?
Yeah.
So you have like your default programming and then like trying to write new script almost that gets you out of that.
Yeah, that's a cool way to think about it, especially if we're living in a simulation.
Yeah, like having all that
We're getting
is
hot
is
software updates and shit. Like our developers are trying to get better at coding, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this update." Bing.
yeah, just
Oh
like
shit, I
promoting.
can think about this differently now.
Mhm.
You gain 1 point to wisdom. Good luck.
Yeah, bro.
That's
But
funny.
life is it is a fucking trip
Life
sometimes,
is but a
you know?
dream.
And it's a a good thing at all times to experience, but experiences still cost you something.
For sure.
Like I've said for a long time, perspective is the most expensive thing that's free in all of the universe. Because perspective costs you your innocence, you know? And you're not gonna understand it until you're on both sides of it, and that's why becoming very accepting of people's nature is powerful because you might feel betrayed, but you're gonna betray somebody. And you're not gonna understand it until you're betrayed, you know? And once you get out of that uh dynamic of understanding that's so conditional, you know, because you're really dealing with trust, right? And trust and betrayal are just two sides of the same coin. Trust is very conditional, love, and it's saying, I'll love you as long as. And then when you don't, you know, live up to that, this person that you're placing that on, you know, um, that definition of their goodness, you feel betrayed. And when you pull that trust that you had away, you're taking away your own goodness that was extended in giving it. But what's more good than all of that, I guess you could say, the highest level of good is to give it without the conditions, knowing and accepting that that person, that it's just right. It's just the right thing to do. And you give because you're a giver, you know, not because that person's in need and or something like that, you know. They don't even have to be in need. You just give, you know, no matter what. And I guess that's where I'm at in life is just kind of understanding that like, bro, I'm a giver, but I have to also look at like what I've taken also, you know? And if I only look at myself as the giver, like that's where my intentions are at, you know? And your intentions might be pure, but like the actual transactional thing, you know, that you've experienced in like a relationship is you might have cost somebody something. You know, thinking you were giving to them, you really took something um that they didn't really have to give at that moment, you
Mhm.
know? And like that can be the problem with say being like over affectionate um like physically based on your need, you know, and under affectionate in terms of seeing where someone else is at, right? And that they're not in the place to receive that love in that way, you know?
Yeah.
And then you have to become nuanced enough to kind of channel things, and that's like where you get a mature relationship rather than kind of like a more lust driven like passionate relationship that has these like ultimate highs and lows and it's just kind of toxic, you know.
Mhm.
And I think that also comes from just being an addict, you know,
For sure.
like and I'm a fucking extremist in like
You are.
the shit that I do, you know? And so like I have to kind of like scratch my head sometimes and go, "Oh, that's what happened." And that's why you say like understanding other people's nature, like it's in their nature. Like I have to learn how to work and move within my nature in a way that's like almost less destructive. Like I'm trying to be constructive all the time, but if and when it's good, it's gold. But when it's not, it's fucking destructive, you know? And it's crazy because you almost can't have both because you need that high level of momentum to produce both outcomes, you know? And so I'm almost just learning how to remain detached, you know, and give and really only accept what's given to me. You know, like in the form of an opportunity, truly like on a silver platter presenting itself to me.
Yeah.
Like across the board. And staying in that place of like not condemning yourself for making mistakes, you know, but learning how to move beyond them, and also just seeing like reading the signs in your life like, okay, I might want success in this one area of my life, but it's just not happening, you know? And like accept that as a sign that like maybe it isn't your time to have like a successful relationship. But everything that you're doing in like personal development and business is like really going strong for you. So rather than me like making B grade headway in those other two areas that are working and then eroding it away from being what it could be, trying to give all that like positivity that I get over in these areas having success to this area where I'm completely failing it, you know, and just go, nah, man, all right, like that ain't for me right now. Doesn't mean that it's not for me ever, you know, but right now, like where I'm at is just where I'm at with the process, and I'm gonna keep that shit on a shelf. And if it never comes, it's okay, cause I'm gonna be so strong and influence in these other areas that make me powerfully proud of myself. You know, um, that it's okay if that shit don't happen. I'ma still contribute. And like if no one wants to stay with me, as long as the people that come across my path get to have a good time with me, like I'm at a certain point, like I don't give a fuck if you use me. Like I just accept like I'm not really like a boundary driven person. Like if you fuck with me, I hope you have the best time and I give you all that I can give in that moment. You know, and if it leads me to highs and lows, like fuck it, bro. Because I'm gonna just keep doing what's working over here, and I'll recover from those highs and lows. And eventually, I give a fuck about high and low. I care more about the experience that's shared, you know, and being the person that wants to share that experience. I don't know if that makes sense or not,
No, I mean,
or if that's destructive or whatever. But
I don't think that it's destructive because I feel like I do a similar thing. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to connect it, and it was something about you accepting fuck, I lost it.
I'm having a hard time accepting the fact that I feel like a fucking 6-year-old because my damn corners of my mouth are all fucking crusty right now.
Oh
Bro,
fuck.
and yeah, my lip, like, bro, ever since I was little, like when it first gets into like wintertime, like I always like the corners of my mouth cut themselves. Like they
Bro,
like
I
crack.
carry chapstick and I overdo it for the
Bro, I've
first
been
2 weeks.
chapsticking the fuck out of myself, bro. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm like, I don't know what I gotta do right now. Like, something's gotta give, bro. It be fucking me up. I
Bro,
wake up in the morning,
Shauna,
bro. I go to eat, my shit be like, and I'm like, this fucking yogurt got my ass.
this is yogurt.
Bro, I was just trying to
Um,
eat a delicious scoop of yogurt, bro. And it was just
sing
like, I
sing.
opened my mouth. I got this fucking mummy ass corner of my mouth just like cracking. And I was like, oh, no, man.
Bro,
And you can't maintain it, bro. Because if you try to maintain it and like not move your mouth enough, you're like, what the fuck is this dude's doing? Yeah, he's doing weird shit. He's talking to me like a fish in a fish tank.
well,
I'm
you
like,
see,
dude,
when you grab the gun like this,
like, this guy's a fucking psycho over here. It's not like I got a mustache or anything that can hide it. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
oh fuck. Oh shit.
It's uncomfortable, bro. For both of
Shauna
us.
bought me this shit for my lips when it first started changing to cold because I got the same thing, and
Yeah.
chapsticking and using that, I've been good, bro. So I have to tell you what it is. It helped a lot with that,
Fucking shout out to Shauna.
honestly. So, fucking, that was hilarious.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. You go ahead and laugh at my fucking thing over here.
I laugh because I understand it. If I
Dude,
didn't understand it, I wouldn't laugh. It wouldn't be funny.
Dude, it scares me. I feel like the Joker, bro. 'Cause I have like the fucking red little fucking corners in my mouth. And I'm like, dude.
Oh my god. I
This
understand
shit's
that shit so hard, bro. I
And then
hate
you
it
have
when
to
it turns cold. It pisses
you have
me
to
off.
swear at somebody like, don't say nothing, motherfucker. Like, and the people that don't, you know, almost like I'm judging you like harder, bro. Like, I'm just so happy a funny person hasn't come across my path and fucking roasted me, bro. You're like, what are you doing, bro? You fucking ate? You over here just fucking with a snot booger frozen or some shit? Like, what's that? What else are you doing? You're supposed to be a fucking professional. The fuck? Who let you come out of the house like that? Like, where's your mom? Like, bro, like someone could really roast me, bro. And it's okay, bro, because I'm a funny person. But if someone did that, I can tell you my body temperature would get like 10,000 degrees, bro. And I'm still staring you in the face because I'm at work. You know what I mean? It's scary. You know, it's a hard situation. But this comes down to just accepting life sometimes, bro. Like sometimes you're just gonna suck. And it just is what the fuck it is, bro.
Oh
And you're
my
like,
god, bro, you're
man,
gonna kill me.
bro, fucking double dare. Sometimes it's a bad day, bro, for you in an area of life, bro. And it's just a rough week. Fucking cracked ass lips. Oh,
Bro, that was 30 seconds of punchlines. Oh, fuck. Ow. Oh my
well, I guess
god.
that's the end of this podcast. I'll just
You
roast
can't
myself
top
and
that
drop
shit.
the mic.
All
So
right,
until
guys.
next week, we're out of here.